51. In the deep sea abyss, the old king wearing a crown arrived riding a Ru beast. It was in this place that he personally witnessed his grandfather, King Yesiel, die in the battle of lost wisdom kingship, devoured by the power originating from the sunflower. How mighty he was, so perfect. He was King Redlachia's most beloved offspring, the discoverer of the land of origin, the protagonist of epic myths. In the end, he still could not withstand the power of fate. And now, as his grandson and heir to the throne, he had come to borrow power from those sinners. A look of shame suddenly appeared on Eli's face. He even wanted to turn around and leave. But thinking of those who betrayed him, those who betrayed the Yesiel family, his turning steps immediately halted. His gaze gradually changed from hesitation to incomparable determination. Eli spoke to his grandfather's memory, King Yesiel, I don't want to do this. But if I don't, I will lose everything, and the Yesiel family will also lose everything. I can't accept it. I want those who resist the king's will to pay the price, to let those who dare to covet and usurp the throne of the Yesiel family know. We are the masters of Yinsai. Woo-woo. The Ru beast let out a desolate howl. Then it plunged into the water with a rumble, falling towards the dark bottomless abyss. Sinners, heed my call and come to me. I will release you from the boundless abyss and grant you the wisdom you once lost. You will be bound by me, and you will fight for me. The intent of the wisdom authority penetrated the deep sea, echoing in the depths of the ocean, entering the minds of those lives that could hear the words. Splash! Even at the bottom of the sea, the sound of tides could be faintly heard. Gulp gulp. Then suddenly, dense bubbles emerged from below, brushing past the Ru beast and King Eli. After the bubbles, countless monsters rushed out from the deep sea abyss. The sinners who were once expelled back to the abyss by King Yesiel appeared once again. The monsters surrounded Eli but were afraid of the power of the Ru beast and did not dare approach. The sinners' fear of this mythical beast that had once slaughtered them was clearly revealed, and the memory of that fear and death was also deeply engraved in their bloodline. A harsh sound of tearing waves echoed as a 100-meter-long tentacle shot out, wrapping around a tall leading sinner and dragging it before King Eli. King Eli stretched out his hand and placed it on the other party's head. Bestowing of power. The secret divine technique of the royal family appeared once again, but this time the target was actually the sinners. Born into the Yesiel family, with naturally thick bloodline as a power wielder, it was not a big deal for him to disperse them at this moment. This thin bloodline could not even activate the wisdom authority, but it was different for these sinners. The bloodline of wisdom returned to them. Even though they still could not speak for all eternity due to God's words, too noisy, shut up. But they once again separated from being idiotic creatures like insects, ferns, and fish, becoming a race possessing wisdom. Moreover, having regained wisdom and language, they could communicate through the tentacles on their heads. One after another, the tall monsters climbed onto the Ru beast, prostrating at Eli's feet, expressing their submission to him. Ha 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 ha, I said I haven't lost yet. Eli's previous dejection was completely swept away, his eyes filled with nothing but hatred and anger. Kill that woman, no matter the cost, you must kill her. That is my kingdom, the throne of the Yesiel family. No one can replace me. Sitting there, God-descended city. Standing atop a stone platform, a man shouted down to the crowd gathered below. We are all trilobite men who walked out of the God-given land. Our ancestors all once lived in the realm of the gods, gazing up at the divine hall and taking an oath. In the beginning of life, we were all the same. We are all children blessed by God. He shouted himself hoarse, extending his hand. King Yesiel lost the God-given kingship and crown because he offended the gods. It was his atrocities that brought down divine punishment. It has nothing to do with us. We are free, we are also God's people. Below the crude stone platform, a dense crowd surrounded it. The words spoken by the person on the high platform received a response from countless people. They excitedly raised their arms and shouted along with him. These people were of lowly commoner origins, slaves, craftsmen. But they also had a unified identity, worshippers of Queen Star. People who followed and worshipped Star were all over the God-descended city. Some worshipped the Queen's personal charm, some because she wanted to amend the legal code, and some because of her benevolence. Amend the code, free the slaves. Of course, there were also many opponents in the crowd. They were angry to the extreme, even calling the city guards to arrest and disperse these people. Nonsense. You're talking nonsense. You are sinners who blaspheme against the gods, descendants of sinners. Shoving, brawling. It was a mess. In a distant alley, several nobles looked at this scene. It's time. Of the 3 Ru beasts under Queen Star, one is in the Sky Temple wielded by the priest of God, and the wielder of another has already agreed to our conditions. When that tyrant returns, what should we do? What can he do even if he returns? Does he think it's still the time when King Yesiel wielded the wisdom kingship? The kingship of wisdom has been lost, and the glory of the Yesiel family is no longer what it used to be. One person could possess multiple Ru beasts but could not control multiple Ru beasts. It was already difficult to accurately have one Ru beast fight on a daily basis. Especially when it was necessary to guard different territories, sometimes the authority had to be dispersed. As night fell, countless monsters crawled out from the depths, approaching the god-descended city. Although they had no legs and could not stay on land for a long time, their powerful lobster-like lower limbs could stand on the ground, and their arms could not only crawl but also had tremendous killing power when swung. Rumble. A giant beast drilled out from the central lake, letting out a roar. Huge waves rose from the center, causing a heavy rain in the surroundings. It also simultaneously awakened this city. A voice immediately rang out from the palace. Queen Star reacted extremely quickly the instant the crisis erupted. Stop it! Star's Ru beast blocked the other party and became entangled with it. The 2 terrifying monsters engaged in fierce battle in the city's lake, then gradually sank into the seabed. The earth quaked and rumbled. Many buildings near the central lake collapsed with a crash. And in the darkness outside the god-descended city, horrifying monsters continuously approached, attacking this city. Their robust tails could leap several meters high onto the city walls with a single bound. The defenders of the god-descended city immediately panicked. They recognized these monsters. It's the sinners. Block them, drive them back down. Don't let them charge into the city. The waterways dug by King Yesiel in the past, directly connecting to the lake at the bottom of the sea, had now become their bridgehead for attacking the god-descended city. Eli slowly walked up the shore, gazing at this familiar royal capital. Yinsai, your master has returned. 52. The sinners, orderly formations continuously assaulted the god-given city. All the monsters were so quiet they didn't make a single sound, let alone any shouts. But that terror and oppression hidden behind the silence far surpassed a roaring cry. As for the city walls above, the voices of the defending soldiers rose one after another. Kill them, hurry, I can't hold this side any longer. Throw the stones down, crush these god-forsaken sinners to death. Where's the reserve guard? Where did the reserve guard go? Where is the priest? Where is the priest? After a night passed, there were corpses all over the city walls, and even a corner of the wall had collapsed. The most brutal slaughter unfolded here, with the collapsed crevice piled full of corpses. But the god-descended city had held on. King Eli didn't let the Ru beast directly charge into the god-descended city for a massive slaughter. He only wanted to stall the Ru beast in Star's hands. After all, in his view, this was his capital. Moreover, he had tens of thousands of sinners in hand, enough to break through the god-descended city without the assistance of Ru beasts guarding it. Both sides ceased fire simultaneously at 10 in the morning. The sinners retreated into the sea to lick their wounds and regroup for battle. The god-descended city also hurriedly repaired the city, while also assessing the wounded and dead, preparing for the upcoming battle. King Eli was waiting for the sinners to defeat the guards and break into the city after resting. While Star was waiting for reinforcements, she had sent a message through special channels when the sinners attacked yesterday. At the fastest, the Ru beasts could arrive today. It's King Eli. Someone saw him, that tyrant has returned. An injured soldier came to report, describing the situation he saw on the city wall. Star already had a guess. I know. You all go down and rest. The reinforcements will arrive today. Several soldiers brought a group of people over, detaining them below the palace. Queen, these people were caught trying to attack the city gate, they reported. The Sky Temple had been opened by internal traitors. How could Star not be on guard? She walked down the steps and looked at them. Is this how you are loyal to the king you swore allegiance to? But the noble kneeling on the ground said, you are not our king. You are the king of those low-born people. Star was not angry. This wasn't the first time she heard these words. Then what oath did you make back then? Are the promises made before God just empty words? She didn't wait for a response. Or rather, at this time, arguing and defending had lost all meaning. Queen Star pointed her scepter at them. You will face the judgment of death and pay the price for your sins and evil. They were taken away. The arrogance these people had just mustered instantly vanished, collapsing into a heap. However, the reinforcements and 3 major royal bloodline families that Star had been waiting for never arrived. Instead, she received the devastating news that the Sky Temple and the God-servant city had been occupied. The Sky Temple is gone. Star felt her body tremble. This was the second time she had lost the Sky Temple. What about the Samo family? She hurriedly asked about her ally. The Samo lord was killed. Now there is a new lord, the messenger replied. Hearing that her most important and loyal partner had died, Star momentarily swayed. She had to lean on the palace pillar to steady herself. Betrayal. Betrayal again. Is this what King Redlachia's descendants have become after leaving the God-given land? They want Eli to kill me, then seize the throne of the Yinsai king. Star calmed down. She knew she had to start preparing an escape route. Tens of thousands of sinners attacked the city walls again and again. The defenders finally couldn't hold on any longer. The city fell, and the monsters poured in. The former king led the God-forsaken people of old to attack this place called the God-descended land, this sanctuary. The palace was in chaos. The retreating royal guards protected the queen as they withdrew towards the city gate on the other side of the coast. "My queen, we must flee at once," they urged her. At the same time, many slaves Star had pardoned and the commoners who supported her followed Star and escaped through the open city gate. They knew that staying behind would not lead to any good end. The sinners, like wild beasts, climbed over the city walls and passed through the city gate passage. King Eli stood on the head of the Rue beast as he entered the God-descended city. Standing on high, he immediately saw the retreating group in the distance, among which Star, wearing a crown and holding a scepter, was so conspicuous. And Star also felt his gaze, turning her head back. Their eyes met. King Eli was high above, his gaze cold and domineering. This scene was so familiar. In Star's mind flashed the image of her father being killed by King Eli. At that time, King Eli had this exact same look in his eyes. That nightmare she had personally defeated had returned. The anger and hatred in her heart surged. King Eli. Eli was the same as her, Star of the Xylong family. "I once told you that a true king is never weak. Even in failure, they can still make a comeback." His voice turned icy. "But this time, there will be no comeback for you." Star left with the slaves, a large number of commoners, and the guards loyal to her, while those ministers and nobles went to welcome the return of the old king. Just as they had once welcomed Queen Star. God-given land. In the blooming sea of flowers beneath the golden pyramid temple, the largest sun cup flower unfurled a dream-like bubble. The dream spirits roamed freely in the realm of dreams, emitting whispers like sleep talking. Suddenly, in his slumber, Polo, the ruler of dreams, heard Star's voice. Her voice was tinged with despair. "Polo, that tyrant we drove away together has returned. Unfortunately, I'm not as formidable or as strong as I thought. The moment I saw him, my first feeling wasn't hatred, but fear. I lost." In the dream's illusion, he saw the fallen city, the frenzied monsters, the slaughtering and wailing people of Yinsai. Polo opened his eyes. The golden sun cup retracted, the flower cup flipped down, transforming into a figure wearing a golden robe. Polo anxiously floated up to the divine hall, prostrating in the center of the hall. "God, I must leave the God-given land once more," he implored. Yin Shen seemed to have long predicted this scene. He had already seen through Polo's heart and choice. "Will you abandon and give up your freedom?" Polo nodded. "In these few years, I've probably come to understand some things. I also understand the meaning of what you said back then, God. Loss and gain are mutual. People constantly grow old, but while losing youth and years, they also gain experience and wisdom. To grow up, one will lose their former innocence. Because one has received parental love, one will also be bound by love. When people gain companions, they have bonds. And are no longer free. Because freedom is lonely." Polo looked at God, revealing a smile. His smile in the past was innocent and naive, like the summer sun. But now, it was more like the winter sun. Warm and more amiable. "I fear being unfree, but I fear loneliness even more." He took a deep breath. "I want to be with Star." Polo left the God-given land. God didn't ask him when he would return. He knew that when the time came to return, the child wandering outside would naturally come back. The first time he left, Polo was confused yet expectant. This time leaving, he was determined and confident. He knew what he wanted and what he should do. 53. In the wilderness of jagged strange rocks, towering boulders like sharp claws and blades stretched towards the sky. Star had fled and trekked all the way here, with only a few hundred people remaining. And on the outskirts of this rocky desert that resembled a jungle, King Eli was leading thousands of soldiers who had pledged allegiance to him to surround her here, searching everywhere for her traces. As the old king had said, he would not give Star any chance. Star had nowhere further to run. Leaving the coastal cities, leaving the fisheries, leaving the water and the ocean. This world had no other place to accommodate the survival of the Trilobite men. This world didn't originally belong to the Trilobite men. It was the home guided by God and the food bestowed by him that allowed them to dwell in this savage world. What a desolate world. It only became wondrous due to the might of Yinsai, only possessing vitality because of God's blessings. Star sighed heavily. And yet, we fail to cherish God's grace. Her expression was unreadable, but her dejection could be felt from her words and sighs. Behind her, people continuously came to report news. The Sky Temple has closed its doors to us. The Samo family killed the messenger we sent out. They even want to find our location. Fortunately, we weren't exposed. The Rue Beast and King Eli's figure have appeared in the south. Unfortunately, only bad news arrived. Star had even compromised with the three major royal bloodline families, willing to give up the throne and hand over the scepter to them, willing to lead her followers to open up a new city. Still, no one was willing to accept her. One piece of bad news after another made everyone apprehensive and greatly dampened their morale. But Star, as the queen, knowing there was no way out and no help, instead became determined. She laughed, the laughter attracting everyone's attention. Does everyone know? I know this place. I've been here before. At that time, my father was killed by King Eli. I led the Xylong family here. God's messenger Polo had not yet returned to the realm of the gods. Star's voice paused for a moment, as if recalling something. She had once again lost everything, but this time, that person wasn't by her side. Hearing the queen talk about her story, many people present stood up, listening intently to the queen's words. Everyone was captivated, and the original panic and fear gradually dissipated quite a bit. I was very lost then. I didn't know how to choose. It was God's messenger Polo who told me I should overthrow the brutal King Eli. I know everyone is still very lost now. Everyone is also very afraid. No one is coming to help us, so we'll rely on ourselves. If we lose, I will die together with you all. A gentle smile appeared on Star's face. I'm sorry. Because of my immaturity, it led to this failure. And thank you all for still following by my side. One by one, people stood up. They surrounded Star, crowding around her side. Kneeling on the ground, they shouted, "Queen Star," loudly. "Queen Star, this is not your fault. It's the tyrant who betrayed King Yesiel, who betrayed God. He released the monsters from the abyss. He will surely suffer divine punishment." Someone hesitated for a moment, then boldly asked, "Queen, do you regret it? For us low-born people. You were born so noble, the heir of the royal bloodline Xylong family, the priest serving the gods. For us, is it worth it?" Star took off the crown on her head, holding it in her arms. "I'm not someone who is very calculating about gains and losses. I also don't understand worth and not worth. At least, I don't regret it. Because a king's nobility doesn't come from this crown. The people of Yinsai following me isn't because of this scepter. It's because we are persisting in the right thing. Even if we fail, we still fail on the right path. In the future, there will still be people walking our path." Star's voice grew stronger. "It is precisely because I stand for what is right that you all respect me as your queen and are willing to follow me." The crowd's spirits were lifted. They followed Star and started retreating again. The Sky Temple wasn't the way out, so they would all retreat to a farther place and start anew there. Dash! The wind whipped up dust, and the massive Rue Beast carried Star's followers, moving through the sand. In the distant sandstorm, batch after batch of shadows appeared. They emerged from the obscuring dust, entering Star's line of sight. Woo-woo! Another Rue Beast let out a desolate, chilling sound. It was King Eli and his army. In this barren world, Star and her followers were surrounded by King Eli leading his army. After hiding and evading, in the end, they were still found by King Eli. One could rise from failure, but it was very difficult to break through failure again because the enemy making a comeback would be even stronger and more prepared. King Eli's resonant voice came. "Star of the Xylong family, I've finally found you." The former king haughtily raised his head, his sharp gaze piercing through the sandstorm and falling on Star. "I will not accept your surrender. Because I cannot accept the weakness of royalty, let alone see the cowardice of a king. Even if it's just a false king." He stared at her intently. "Queen Star, are you prepared to die on your feet?" Star had long expected this. She watched King Eli continuously approach. When she could clearly see his figure, she said, I also will not beg a tyrant for mercy, let alone plead with the enemy who killed my father. I only hope that after I die, you can have the magnanimity of a king. Let my followers go. King Eli was clearly not someone who would compromise. He was the king, the lofty king. He resolutely refused. Those who do not obey me have only the path of death. Star. King Eli, you are still so brutal. King Eli didn't care at all about others calling him brutal. Or rather, he believed a king should be like this. If everyone could loyally follow the king, I would also be willing to bestow kindness upon them. His voice turned cold. But alas, this world is full of rebels and ambitious fools who refuse to submit to royal authority. This was a war with no retreat. The two sides were destined to have only one survive. Queen Star's followers jumped off the giant beast, spreading out and forming a formation on the other side, holding bone shields as if fighting shoulder to shoulder with the queen and the Rue beast. Kill! Both sides shouted loudly to muster their courage. Kill the false king! The charging soldiers raised their bone spears high. Fight for Queen Star! The soldiers in formation connected their bone shields together. But it was clear that King Eli's side had a greater advantage in numbers. King Eli and Star controlled the giant beasts under them to confront each other, while the two of them continuously wielded the power of divine techniques, manipulating swords and spears to attack each other. Dozens of meters away, ranks of javelin throwers continuously threw volleys of bone javelins at Queen Star. After throwing, they retreated, and another rank stepped forward. The javelins fell like rain, not only making the giant beast restless when they pierced its body but also threatening Queen Star, forcing the queen to split her attention to defend with divine techniques or dodge. Star was disrupted, gradually becoming cornered under King Eli's attacks. 54. King Eli manipulated spear after spear with divine techniques, thrusting towards Star. Some were deflected by Star's sword, while others were blocked by the scepter in Star's left hand. At the end of your rope. Star of the Xylong family, you can't hold on much longer. Star looked at King Eli resolutely, didn't you say a king should die standing? At this point, you still want me to beg you? King Eli was stunned for a moment, then burst into uncontrollable laughter. He looked at Star with surprise, even approaching ecstasy. He couldn't accept being defeated by a weak woman. In comparison, he hoped his opponent was a truly powerful enemy. Ha 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 ha. Good. Very good. This is the gaze a king should have. Although King Eli said this, his attacks didn't relent in the slightest. Instead, they became fiercer. The stronger the enemy, the more seriously they should be treated. He spread his arms, releasing the power of divine techniques without any concealment. The Rue beast under him was controlled even more precisely, with hundreds of tentacles lashing out densely like whips. On the other side, a row of javelin throwers launched another round of volleys. Star finally made a misstep. The swords driven by her divine techniques were entangled and held down by the opponent's Rue beast, losing a major force. Protect me. The tentacles of the Rue beast under her immediately retracted, wrapping around Star like a flower bud. But the contracting tentacles of the Rue beast were obviously no match for the speed of the mind-controlled spears. In this instant of an opening, King Eli's spear had already thrust towards Star through the gap. Looking at the constantly enlarging spear before her eyes, Star's pupils rapidly dilated. In her mind, scenes flashed by like a lantern, unbelievably fast. Father, family, friends. And that figure in golden robes smiling at her. Ah, I lost my father, lost Polo, lost my friends, and also lost the throne. Star's heart clenched. Will I now lose my very life as well? At this moment, a golden vine descended from the sky, deflecting King Eli's spear. Clang! In the desert sky, a golden light accompanied the sun's descent, sliding down towards Star. That messenger of God in golden robes came with the wind and light, landing beside Star. Polo's voice rang out, warm and familiar. I'm back, Star. Although Queen Star excitedly called out Polo's name in her heart, her mind still quickly took advantage of this opening to throw the scepter in her hand, using divine techniques to knock King Eli off the Rue beast. King Eli rolled onto the sand, immediately flipping over and fleeing into the distance. At the same time, he ordered his Rue beast to entangle Star's Rue beast. Polo's dream divine technique activated a bit slowly. He reflexively used vines to wrap around King Eli's legs, suspending him in midair. While another vine pressed against King Eli's brow like a spear. But it abruptly stopped in an instant. Polo was a bit at a loss. Although he possessed great power, he had never killed anyone before. Even when he took action in the god-descended city before, He only put the city's defenders into a dream state while avoiding the front lines of battle. He yearned for adventure but detested killing. Adventure was just a dream, killing was reality. That was the first time he discovered how contradictory dreams and reality were. Just like creating an airplane out of a longing for the sky, only to find that when dreams were projected into reality, they became tools of war and slaughter. Star's Rue Beast was entangled by the opponent and couldn't break free. She directly abandoned the Rue Beast, jumping down from on high. She passed by Polo's side and walked towards King Eli. "Let me," she said indifferently, "yours are not hands that kill. You are the messenger of God from the realm of the gods, the beloved child of the gods born without any sins. I am the trilobite man born with original sin, the race expelled from the God-given land." Star picked up the sword she had dropped on the ground earlier, her steps firm. Turning her head back, she revealed a smile. Her voice was gentle but resolute. "Release him, Polo. I don't want your hands to be stained with the blood of others, tainted with the sin of killing." She wanted to face her fear head-on. She wanted to personally defeat the opponent, to end her and the tyrant Eli's enmity, to end the beginning of all this. On the side, two giant beasts were embroiled in battle, and more soldiers were fighting without end. The fallen King Eli coughed incessantly on the ground. He was a bit frantic, glaring at Star and rebuking her. "Foolish, foolish," he sneered at her. "You have the upper hand, yet you insist on this ridiculous duel. Star of the Xylong family, your foolishness knows no bounds." Star was not swayed in the slightest by the other party's words. Her sword was incomparably sharp, and her hand did not tremble at all. Her resolve was as unyielding as the blade she wielded. A king is called a true king because they have inner principles and morality. Mortals can burst forth with power surpassing the ordinary precisely because they possess conviction and belief. Star stared at Eli intently. Without these qualities, what separates humans from mere insects? How are we any different from the mindless monsters of the deep? Eli raised his bone spear. "Then I will kill you here and prove that only victory is everything." In the showdown of divine techniques, sword and spear clashed. The battle between the two continued. They swung their swords at each other with all their might, thrusting spears at the enemy. Even if they were covered in wounds, even if their strength was exhausted. The new and old kings still refused to admit defeat, refused to show any weakness or retreat. In the end, Star, barely able to stand upright, deflected Eli's bone spear with her sword. Grasping the scepter like a spear in her other hand, she lunged forward, thrusting it at her foe. "Die, tyrant!" Star stabbed the scepter into Eli's chest, just as Eli had killed her father back then. King Eli first lowered his head to look at his own chest, dazed for a long time, as if unable to accept his own ending. Even when Star pulled out the scepter, King Eli still stubbornly stood upright, unwilling to fall. Blood spurted from his mouth, flowing along the shattered bone armor. King Eli turned his head to look at Polo, smiling bitterly as he asked him, "Messenger of God, is all this the will of God? Is he wanting to punish me, this king who is not devout enough?" Polo was shocked by this tragic scene. He shook his head and said, "This is not the will of God, nor is it the choice of God. This is your own choice, and also my own will." Polo looked at the gradually weakening King Eli and slowly said, "Everything in the world belongs to the gods, but the gods have given living beings the opportunity to choose." Upon hearing this answer, King Eli didn't show the slightest bit of happiness. Instead, he was extremely disappointed. If this was divine retribution, at least it would mean the gods still paid them heed. He slowly closed his eyes, his voice filled with endless sighs. "Indeed, in the eyes of the gods, we are just a group of lowly insects." His final words were barely a whisper. Insignificant creatures, not even worth a glance. No matter how much he tried to maintain his dignity, no matter how arrogantly he declared his nobility as king. When death arrived, he still had to fall into the dust, entangled with the dirt on the ground. Star looked at the fallen Eli, the scepter in her hand dropping to the ground, as if all the strength had been drained from her body. Polo immediately stepped forward to hug Star, while Star smiled at Polo. Her voice was filled with relief and triumph. "Polo, I'm stronger than I ever thought possible." She had finally broken through her inner demon and also killed her life's greatest enemy. 55. By the azure lake, the ancestral fish leapt out of the water's surface. One by one, the commoners living in the village and cave dwellings at the foot of the mountain walked out, looking towards the distant billowing dust. When they clearly saw the arriving figures and the iconic Rue Beast of the Xylong family, everyone became agitated. "The queen has returned. It's the queen, she has come back. Queen Star and the messenger of God. The crowd gathered on the lakeshore, waving and cheering towards the distance. On the mountain path steps leading to the God-servant city, rows of soldiers knelt on the ground, waiting. The rules set by King Yesiel in the past were no longer followed by anyone. There were also many priests and nobles detained in front of the city gate of the God-servant city, their bodies tightly bound. Star and Polo stood side by side, ascending step by step. Looking at the familiar sights, she couldn't help but say, "I never thought that after going in such a big circle, we would come back here now." Without pause, they passed the tall and majestic statue of King Redlichia kneeling on one knee, humbly lowering his head to look at the ground. That gaze happened to fall upon Star and Polo. Star turned to Polo, a pensive look on her face. "Do you think King Redlichia ever imagined his descendants would end up like this?" Polo thought for a moment. He definitely hoped his children would be even more outstanding than him. He was a great king, a benevolent king. But in the end, he was not a god and had no way to foresee the future. Star suddenly recalled that divine words again. Everyone believed it was God's warning to King Redlichia. Those fateful words marked the beginning of the Trilobite men's original sin. The chasm of desire will not be satisfied no matter how much you give, and the mountain of resentment will not disappear even if you bestow blessings. God had long foreseen everything, but King Redlichia still stubbornly believed in his children. Sometimes Star wondered, if King Redlichia had followed God's words back then and they hadn't been expelled from the God-given land. What would it be like? Perhaps they would still be enjoying God's blessings in the God-given land, but they wouldn't have a future. Star gazed skyward, her voice filled with realization. "God, could it be that by casting us out from the God-given land, you were actually granting us a future and freedom?" Star reclaimed the Sky Temple and also sent people to reclaim the God-descended city and vast territories. She sat on the throne in the palace of the God-servant city. Below, many people suggested immediately going to war to punish the three major royal bloodline families who had betrayed Queen Star. But Star shook her head. "Let everything end here. End the war, end the endless killing between the royal bloodline families for the sake of the crown. Let time prove who was right." She didn't plan to continue fighting. The other three major families had long shrunk and fortified their territories. The territories they had cultivated for generations were like an iron plate. Without the crown of wisdom, anyone else wanting them to submit would have to go through battle after bloody battle again. Polo looked at Star. "Then there will be no Yinsai." But Star said, "What's gone is only the king of Yinsai. Yinsai will still live on in everyone's hearts forever. We are Yinsai, and Yinsai is also all Trilobite men, not just a person wearing a crown." Star's voice grew thoughtful. Perhaps the instant the crown of wisdom was lost, this very moment became inevitable. The Yinsai kingdom split into 4 nations, established by the 4 major royal bloodline families. The Yinsai kingdom founded by King Redlichia, the dynasty that King Yesiel sought out the land of origin and made flourish, fell in 4 generations. In the depths of the sea, an abandoned ancient underwater city. In the very center of the ancient city stood a giant tower, its spire emerging from the sea surface, engraved with the name of Yesiel. Group after group of sinners swam back from the shallow sea to the deep sea, arriving here. The sinners who had regained wisdom were clearly completely different. King Eli, who had bestowed bloodline and wisdom upon them, had died. They had also broken free from their shackles. Although there still weren't many leaders with wisdom, as long as the bloodline of wisdom was passed down, there would be more and more sinners with wisdom. The first sinner who reawakened wisdom stood atop the spire of the ancient city, declaring to all the sinners, "From this day forth, we have another name, the people of the abyss. We come from beneath the abyss, and we will establish our nation here." Thousands upon thousands gathered here. They occupied the underwater ancient city built by King Yesiel and his second-generation sons in the past. They learned from the Trilobite men to herd and raise schools of ancestral fish. They also inherited the script of the Trilobite men. In the vast ocean, they established a new nation. More than a decade later. Star Luo Kingdom. Without the Yinsai king, the infighting and internal strife between the royal bloodline families ceased. Without the Yinsai king to suppress and restrict the royal bloodlines, the royal bloodline families no longer worried about the repression that expansion would bring. They began to shift their gazes from internal affairs to the distant horizon. They focused their efforts on governing the country and set their sights on expanding their territories. They opened up their fetters and shackles, bravely exploring the distance and establishing city after city, town after town, village after village. Different nations had different laws and systems. Some completely inherited the institutions of Yinsai, while others were dominated by the newly emerging powerful forces of merchants and workshop owners. Some were completely religious nations, attracting a large number of devout believers, regardless of whether they were slaves or commoners. Everything seemed to have changed for the better and become more vibrant. 100 flowers bloomed in contention, no longer lifeless and stagnant. On this day, after Queen Star heard the requests of the ministers and priests, she suddenly summoned everyone. It's been so many years. You have all done better than I imagined. It is precisely because of all of you that the Star Luo Kingdom can have today's prosperity. As the Queen, I thank you here for your efforts. Everyone in the palace returned the salute. Star let everyone return to their original positions and continued. Today, I want to announce something very important. Star had the young female trilobite man sitting beside her stand up. This was the current priest of God serving in the Sky Temple. In front of everyone, she handed the scepter inherited from King Redlucia to this priest of God. From this day forth, you are the high priest of the Sky Temple and also the queen of the Star Luo Kingdom. The young priest of God was at a loss, grasping the scepter and kneeling on the ground. Your Majesty the Queen, I. The ministers were even more in a frenzy, not understanding why Queen Star wanted to transfer the throne. Queen, you are. The Queen had long been preparing for this day and had already arranged her successor. She was just waiting for everything to stabilize, waiting for the Star Luo Kingdom and the Sky Temple to no longer need her. The Star Luo Kingdom no longer needs me. I should also go do what I want to do. Her gaze swept over those below as she spoke in a commanding tone. In the name of Queen Star, I order you to pay respects to the new Queen and High Priest of the Sky Temple. The new Queen sat on the throne, accepting the kneeling salute of everyone. Star stood behind the new Queen, witnessing the birth of the new ruler together with the statues of the gods. When the crowd raised their heads, she had already walked out of the palace through the side corridor, disappearing from everyone's sight. 56. The path from the God-servant city to the Sky Temple was steep and winding, with intricately carved cloud-shaped handrails. All around, one could see nothing but the sky and a sea of clouds. Walking here felt like ascending the stairs to heaven, instinctively evoking a sense of devotion and reverence. Star now hurried up the path, her footsteps impatient. At this moment, she desperately wanted to see that figure and tell him that she was no longer the queen. She arrived at the Divine Cup Flower Garden and saw Polo crouched in a corner like a child, tinkering with a flower pot. Seeing this scene, she suddenly recalled their first meeting. She couldn't help but laugh. Back then, Polo had suddenly rushed out from the flower bed of the Sun Cup flower, and she thought she had seen some monster, startling her. Throughout her journey, he had always been by her side, coming to her aid in her most difficult and dangerous moments. She quietly approached Polo from behind, wanting to startle him by suddenly speaking. You being so quiet is unlike you. Polo raised a finger to his lips. Shish, they're sleeping. To Polo, these Sun Cup flowers were all alive. Just like innocent little children, even though they had not yet become dream spirits or gained wisdom. Polo carefully walked out with Star, only whispering to her once they were outside. Why did you suddenly run over here? Shouldn't you be discussing matters with them now? Star smiled and said, the discussions are over. Polo was a bit happy. So quickly. Star nodded, her words hinting at something. Not only are the discussions over now, but there's no need for further deliberations in the future. She paused, her voice softening. I'll have so much more time to spend with you now, Polo. His eyebrows raised, revealing a slightly playful expression. Although I must admit, it has been a tad dull around here lately. Star suddenly said, in that case, let's travel and adventure together. Polo glanced at Star, not immediately believing her words, thinking she was just comforting him. He laughed. You're so busy, how can you get away? But Star continued, I'm no longer the queen, nor the high priest of the Sky Temple. Polo was stunned. What about the throne? Star shook her head. From the very beginning, I was not suited to be a king. I have accomplished everything I can, and it is time to pass the position of High Priest of the Sky Temple and the throne to more suitable young people. She smiled and embraced Polo, leaning against him. Didn't you always say you wanted to travel and adventure in the outside world? To see what this world is really like. From now on, we are free. I am no longer bound by the throne or the identity of a priest, and I don't have to be busy every day. Starting now, I will be by your side every day, and we can go wherever you want. Polo looked at Star, not speaking for a long time. He was a bit moved, and even more overjoyed. The smile on his face gradually spread, like the light of the sun slowly shining down, warm and bright. So when do we set off? Star had let go of everything, now, she only had eyes for Polo. Whenever you want to set off, we'll set off. Polo danced excitedly, the shape of his hands raised under his golden robe as he spun Star around. Then let's go now. Star smiled and nodded. Then now it is. Polo laughed heartily. The Queen's story has ended, now it's the travel story of Star and Polo. Together, we'll go to the ends of the world where no one has ever reached, see the most magnificent sights, and embark on the greatest adventures. Star, no matter where we go, as long as you are by my side, that's all that matters. Polo took Star's hand, and the two transformed into a beam of starlight, vanishing from the divine cup flower garden of the Sky Temple. The starlight traveled along the sky into the distance, dissipating far away. Legend has it that people saw two golden and silver starred figures running on the ocean's surface, and others saw fantastic gold and silver oars encircling a burning meteor falling from the summit of a volcano. There were merchants who encountered two strange individuals during their travels, listening to them recount legendary tales, but afterwards, they could not recall what the two looked like. The story of the Queen Star and the Messenger of God would forever be passed down in the lands of the Yinsai and the Trilobite men. Wherever there was something new and exciting, their presence could be found. God-given land. A dream bubble shattered in the distance, and that mysterious power traversed the ocean, arriving in the legendary realm of the Yinsai god. Ever since Polo created the dream spirit race, this God-given land had become lively. These dream spirits might not have only inherited Polo's divine blood but also his innocent and romantic nature. They spent their days frolicking and playing without a care in the world, never knowing what worries were. They flitted through the flower fields of the God-given land, soaring by the sea and in the sky, with their only fear being Shelly. Hee hee, come catch me, I don't want to, I want to sleep. I'm going to deliver a message to the temple. A dream bubble suddenly appeared in the flower cup of a dream spirit, and it paused for a moment before looking towards the temple. That scary monster is also in the temple. The other dream spirits retracted their heads in fear. They were not afraid of meeting God, but rather the Rue Beast King that haunted the temple. This dream spirit, as if venturing into a land of death, stepped timidly to the temple's entrance, carefully peeking inside. "Oh, it's not here," it exclaimed with relief. Just as the dream spirit showed a delighted expression, a slender hand reached out from the side, grabbed it, and brought it before God. The blooming flower cup held up the dream bubble, which kept expanding until its diameter reached over a meter. Bowing reverently, the dream spirit spoke. "God, your messenger humbly presents to you." In the dream bubble, the figures of Polo and Star appeared. Following that, scene after magnificent scene unfolded in the illusion. There was a city in a downpour, Trilobite men fishing near the sea under the sunset, the site of a volcanic eruption, and a mirage of a sea of clouds seen by a caravan traversing the desert. The myriad aspects of life made the desolate world vibrant. Compared to volcanoes and mirages, life was the greatest wonder of this world. And in each of these scenes, Polo and Star were present. Finally, Polo and Star bowed to God. "Almighty God, this is the gift Polo offers to you. Although Polo cannot travel alongside you, he can still serve as your eyes." With excitement in his voice, Polo added, "God, the outside world is truly incredible." A white light emanated from the divine statue, and the shadow within the light gradually opened its eyes, casting its gaze upon the changing images in the dream bubble. So this is what the outside world has become. 57. In the vast and desolate temple, rain poured outside the pyramid. Drip, drip, the raindrops hit the steps, flowing down along the crevices. Through the temple's doors and windows, one could see the clamorous world of rain outside. In the past, Yin Shen enjoyed such scenes, but at this moment, he had no interest in it. His eyes were fixed on the inside of the divine conch shell. The magical conch shell with intricate patterns was a tool for creating life. Originally, it had no name, but now in the mythology of the Trilobite men, it was called the mother conch of all things. The people of Yinsai believed it created all life in this world. Inside the mother conch of all things, a newborn dream spirit took form under the gaze of God. It was different from other dream spirits. From birth, it held an eggshell in its embrace. At this moment, this beautiful creature dressed in golden divine robes was slumbering, cradling the eggshell. From within the eggshell, one could directly see its dream. It was a fantastical and soft light, devoid of any color, yet nurturing infinite miracles. The illusory light emanating from the dream spilled into the real world, shining at the feet of the divine, as gentle as moonlight spilling onto the earth. Ah, he, a new companion. It seems even more powerful. Its dream is so real. Several dream spirits giggled as they surrounded God, curiously observing the newborn dream spirit inside the divine conch shell, whispering amongst themselves. Yin Shen touched the conch shell, which was dozens of meters tall, and the entire shell became completely transparent. The giant conch shell was embedded in one side of the temple, and from inside the hall, only a portion of its side could be clearly seen. Yin Shen was sensing everything about this dream spirit. Dream power. Second tier. The dream spirit had evolved. Just like the wisdom bloodline of the trilobite men, the dream spirits had also gained second tier power. Yin Shen had spent many years on this, attempting it again and again. He had finally found the part that perfected the divine blood of the dream spirits, allowing their power to cross from the dimension of consciousness into the real world. The trilobite men used the pollen of the sun cup flower to perfect their wisdom power, thus gaining a power similar to psychic energy. Surprisingly, the dream spirits used the eggshells of young trilobite men as a bridge and medium to interfere with and touch reality. The eggshells of the trilobite men became the vessel for the dream spirits to nurture their dreams. Because they possessed wisdom and consciousness, dreams were born. Because they had fantasy and illusions, the trilobite men could use their consciousness and thoughts as a brush to explore the world. The trilobite men and the dream spirits were like interlocking closed circles. Spirit wandering between dreams, release your power. God's words entered the consciousness of the dream spirit, and it immediately transformed its form. The golden robe flipped up, forming a giant flower cup. It changed from a humanoid being into a huge sun cup flower. The eggshell that was originally resting beneath its head also slowly floated up, radiating a dazzling dream light, like a dream sun held high. The dream egg expanded bit by bit as it rotated, gradually covering the surrounding dozens of meters. However, this dream realm was a blank slate, nothing existed within it. Memory was the cornerstone of dreams and the sustenance of dream spirits. The more powerful the memories they devoured, the more complete and powerful their dream egg would become. Yin Shen extended his hand, and light flowed from his fingertips. That faint starlight fell, plummeting into the dream spirit's dream egg. If mortals were to feed a dream spirit with their memories, they would immediately and permanently lose that memory. What the dream spirits took away was not only their memories but also their lives. But clearly, this dream spirit could not possibly steal anything from God's memories. The tiny bit of God's memory about snow descended and transformed into endless glaciers in the dream spirit's world. Even the dream egg began to be covered in frost, it could not withstand it for a moment. The crown of wisdom on Yin Shen's finger erupted with power, connecting to the dream spirit. The light of the dream suddenly exploded, instantly expanding by hundreds, thousands of times. The light continued to spread, bursting out of the temple, out of the pyramid, enveloping the entire God-given land. Murmuring in its sleep, the dream spirit called out, "Snow! It's so cold." However, even more wondrous things were happening outside the temple. The drifting rain suddenly turned into gusts of frost, and white snowflakes continuously fell, landing on the ground. Yin Shen slowly walked out of the temple. He reached out his hand, wanting to catch the falling snow. However, the snow passed through God's hand, landing on the ground. Shelley also imitated God, catching a snowflake and bringing it before God. The group of dream spirits had never seen such a sight before. They rushed outside, cheering, welcoming the falling snow. Yin Shen withdrew his hand, using his psychic power to control the snowflakes to float up. The small diamond-shaped ice crystals rotated and stopped in midair. When dreams shine into reality, they can twist reality. It's truly a magical power. When the bud of the sun cup flower closed, the huge bubble also gradually spun and shrank back into the bud. It awoke from the dream realm, descending into the real world. The dream spirit flew out from the mother conch of all things, facing God's back. Bowing reverently, it spoke, "My Creator, the great God of creation, the supreme Yinsai, I thank you for bestowing life upon me." God nodded, not saying a word. The second-tier dream spirit possessed a dream egg, granting it the ability to make dreams come true, but this power also had limitations. For example, it could turn sand into stone and gems, but it could not turn sand into gold. It could transform water into snow and ice, but it could not turn water into oil. Rather than changing the substance itself, it was more like reshaping and refining it. Each dream spirit had its own name, and the newborn dream spirit was no exception. Excitedly, the dream spirit told God, "God, I've thought of it. My name is Hela, meaning light and hope. The newborn dream spirit was not as lively and active as the other dream spirits, it preferred to dream, roaming in its own dream world. But like the other dream spirits, its innocence and simplicity remained unchanged. Hope. Why choose this name? The dream spirit Hela told God, I like this word and hope that my birth can bring hope and light to this world. Just as the divine has brought wisdom and life to this world. God told her, the world does not care that I created life and wisdom, nor will it care whether you can bring hope and light. The ones who care about these things are only the people themselves. These people were the trilobite men. And also Hela and Yin Shen. Yin Shen bestowed upon Hela some of the memories from his own. The memory of smelting metal, the memory of firing pottery, the memory of refining lamp oil, the memory of manufacturing gems, and so on. Hela's dream egg grew stronger and stronger, and the scope of her dreams also expanded. She held the dream egg and slumbered beneath the divine platform, her dreams gradually covering the entire pyramid, and the light of illusion blossomed in the realm of God. The pyramid temple, which had started to become dilapidated over the years, was refreshed in Hela's dream. The broken steps and old, blurry murals gradually became clear. No dirt or dust could tarnish this place anymore. Various objects decorated the divine hall. The temple gained heavy, tall metal doors, and all kinds of gems were embedded in the dome of the temple. Various metal creations appeared here, and lamps emerged on the pillars and stone walls. The empty, drafty windows gained colorful glass panes. And at night, there was golden lamplight. The glow emanating from the golden, luxurious lamps reflected off the dark gold, extravagant objects, illuminating the once dark and secluded temple with a dazzling splendor. The dream spirit Hela transformed the God-given land into a true divine realm, and at this moment, the God's temple truly became a sacred place, untainted by the mundane world. 58. 100 years had passed since the establishment of the four great kingdoms, and people had long forgotten the once existent Yensai. Even Yesiel, the second-generation king of wisdom, had become a myth, and the grudges and hatred between King Eli and Queen Star had turned into distant memories. People would only occasionally chat about these stories during idle conversations. Even those more ancient stories had gradually been forgotten. People could only recall those great and noble names but couldn't remember what had actually happened in the past. On this day, two figures returned to a small town outside the god-descended city. The town was clearly a fishing village, and its residents made a living by fishing. Even the air carried a fishy and salty smell. Let's stop here. Polo held Star's hand as they stood on the sea, looking up at the ruins left behind by King Yesiel. Not going any further. Star looked at Polo. No, we've walked for so long. It's time for us to rest. Polo turned his head to look at Star, speaking gently. Polo gazed at Star. Her once beautiful and fair bone armor had become rough and worn, and the star-filled glow had turned dim and obscure. Star had aged, while Polo remained largely unchanged from before. Both Polo and Star knew that their journey was nearing its end. Star smiled. Then let's stop here. They found a beautiful sandy beach by the sea and built a house with a courtyard. The courtyard was covered with a golden dome, seeming to be woven from the cups of the sun cup flower, dazzling and beautiful. Inside the courtyard, sun cup flowers were planted everywhere. These flowers, considered taboo by ordinary people and only worthy of possession by royalty, did not hold such a mystical allure in the eyes of the two. Polo loved flowers, and Star would spend her days sitting in the courtyard, gazing out at the sea through the window. The courtyard filled with sun cup flowers emanated an air of illusion. Ordinary people couldn't see this place at all, let alone approach it. However, on this day, something unusual happened. Knock, knock, knock. The sound of knocking came from outside. Someone had come to visit them. Who are you? Polo asked. A voice, respectful and humble, came from outside the courtyard. Greetings to the noble Queen Star and the messenger of God. I am a poet and scholar from the Queen's former hometown, the God-servant city. My name is Tito. Polo, we didn't invite you. The person replied, please forgive my boldness and uninvited arrival. If I have offended the Queen and the messenger of God, I will leave immediately. Star raised her head. It's been a long time since anyone visited us. Let him in. A young trilobite man walked in and offered the highest courtesy to the two. Star asked him, how did you find us? The young poet answered, I didn't deliberately seek you out. I just happened to pass by and saw the sun cup flowers. No one but the royal family can possess such things, and why would those noble and extravagant royals live in a place like this? I guessed that the legendary Queen Star and messenger of God Polo must be living in seclusion here to be able to grow such a dazzling field of sun-cup flowers. Star, you're very clever. The poet. No, I believe this is the arrangement of fate. Fate brought me here, and it was also fate that arranged for me to meet you and the messenger of God. Star was curious, you believe in fate? The poet nodded earnestly, I believe everything is predestined, just like the 23rd article of the Red Lucia Covenant's divine admonition, just like how King Yesiel was destined to lose the crown of wisdom. Tito came from the God-servant city. When he was born, Queen Star had already left there for several decades. His mother was a concubine's daughter of the Xylong family, one of the royal bloodlines. He was born with the bloodline of wisdom power, but he couldn't activate it himself. However, he could see through shallow illusions. Tito's name meant map, because his grandfather had created the first map of Yinsai, including the 4 kingdoms and the entire world known to the Trilobite men. Born into such an illustrious family of scholars, he did not become a scholar who drew maps but instead did everything he could to become a poet. For this reason, he left the God-servant city, traveling between the major kingdoms and lingering in the ruins where historical events had taken place. Why did you want to become a poet? Is it because of a dream? Star inquired. Tito shook his head, in cartography, I could never surpass my grandfather, and in scholarship, it would be difficult for me to surpass my father. Only by becoming a great poet could I be remembered by the world. I want to have my own story, my own achievements, and my own career. Star nodded, a very honest answer. So, have you written any great poems? Tito replied, I am currently composing an epic about Yinsai, chronicling the tales of King Yesiel and King Eli. Now, all that remains is your story. The elderly Star laughed, straightening her body. Can I also be included in the epic? A final ruler who ended Yinsai, a person who ended the legacy of King Yesiel, a protagonist who instigated infighting and killing among the royal families. Tito, let future generations judge right and wrong. What I want to do is simply record history. Therefore, I believe it is fate and the guidance of God that brought me here, allowing me to meet you. The young poet said earnestly. After hearing this, Star couldn't help but sigh, indeed. Whether it's right or wrong, it's not up to you or me to say. She no longer resisted and began to recount her life to the poet. Her legend, her glory, as well as her hardships and choices, her laughter and happiness. The poet would occasionally ask questions, and Star would answer them all. It was not until sunset that the poet stood up and thanked Queen Star with respect. Thank you, Your Majesty the Queen. Star, I am no longer a queen, let alone Your Majesty. The poet Tito, in my heart, you will always be the noble Queen Star. The young poet departed, promising to return the next day with a draft of his writing for the Queen to review. Polo, who had been standing by her side the entire time, suddenly spoke, I wonder what kind of story he will write, but it feels like it will be hard to make it a happy one. Star was indifferent, history is always heavy. Epics and myths are never full of smiles and laughter. Our story, our happiness, we know it ourselves. That's enough. After saying this, Star could no longer maintain her sitting posture. She was already very tired from sitting for so long. I'm a bit tired, I'm old now, I can't even sit for a little while. Back in the day, I could hold a sword and engage in a life or death battle with King Eli. Polo helped Star up, I'll help you inside to rest. That night, a sudden storm raged outside. Star abruptly woke up and called out, Polo, where are you? Polo responded reassuringly, I'm here. Star touched Polo and finally calmed down. Polo, I just had a dream, she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. I dreamed of a pitch-black place, like the legendary deep-sea abyss. I'm so scared. Do you think I'll be banished there after I die? Polo shook his head, how could that be? Don't worry, even if you die, I will still be with you. I am the messenger of the divine, the master of dreams. In the world of dreams, I will always be with you. We will repeat our adventures and travels together, again and again, never stopping. A blissful smile appeared on Star's face as she began to recount the interesting things that happened during her and Polo's journey, some of the scenes that were most deeply etched in her memory. As she spoke, her voice grew softer and softer. Gradually, it turned into indistinct murmurs. Star tightly grasped Polo's golden robe, and Polo leaned in, listening to her voice. I know, I remember it all. Finally, Star let go of his golden robe, a look of contentment on her face. But Polo's expression instantly turned blank, as if he had heard a shattering sound. as if something inside him had broken. 59. The next day, the poet Tito arrived at the seaside mansion with a bone tablet filled with Yinsai script. He joyfully awaited Queen Star's judgment of his poetry. Unfortunately, when he pushed open the door, he did not see Star waiting for him. Instead, he saw the queen resting eternally amidst a sea of flowers. Tito was completely stunned. Star lay quietly in the flower field, with the messenger of God Polo embracing her as he sat in the center. The sun-cup flowers swayed around Polo as if comforting him. In disbelief, Tito muttered, "Queen Star is dead." He knelt on the ground in panic, kissing the earth. He had witnessed the passing of a monarch, the last ruler of Yinsai. Sensing Tito's panic, Polo looked at Star's face, her eyes tightly closed, and spoke to Tito. "You need not be afraid. Everyone will pass away, and Queen Star is no exception." Polo's voice was ethereal, as if it echoed directly in one's mind. As God once said, Polo continued, his voice tinged with solemnity, even the sun and the sky will eventually extinguish, and the universe is inevitably moving towards its demise. Aside from the great God, who can claim true eternity? Tito was familiar with these words, as they were also recorded in the Red Lucia Covenant. Every trilobite man who grew up in the kingdom of Yinsai, even if they could not recite it, had at least heard it. As Polo held Star and spoke incessantly, a crack suddenly appeared on his face. Like a shattered piece of pottery, a fissure had opened up. It was then that Tito noticed that Polo's face and neck were covered in cracks. He looked at Polo's face in panic and hastily asked, "Lord Polo, messenger of God, what is happening to you?" Polo had been immersed in the scene of Star's passing, and only reacted when Tito spoke. A corner of his robe protruded, touching his own face. A look of sudden realization appeared on his face. He finally understood what that shattering sound he had heard yesterday was. Polo's expression gradually turned into one of relief, with a hint of sorrow at the corners of his mouth. It was an expression that did not belong to a dream spirit, let alone to Polo. "So it was my dream. That has ended." In this final moment, Polo suddenly discovered another secret of the dream spirits. The power of dream spirits came from dreams, or rather, from their pure hearts. They possessed innocent hearts and enjoyed long lifespans. They wandered between reality and illusion, embarking on an eternally joyous and unending dream journey. When their hearts were no longer pure, or when they gave up on dreaming, it was time for the dream to end. And when the dream ended, it marked the moment their lives came to a close. Polo had originally wanted to go back and meet God himself, but he found that he couldn't even stand up. His dream was gradually shattering, and the dream spirit was vanishing along with his dream, like a dissipating bubble. He looked at Tito beside him and suddenly asked, "Have you finished writing your Yinsai epic?" Tito fumbled and took out his bone tablet, handing it to Polo. "It's already finished. I came today to have Queen Star review it. But, I truly never imagined." Polo kindly asked, "May I take a look?" Tito nodded, "Of course, Lord Polo, messenger of God." Polo took the thin stack of bone tablets from Tito's hands and looked at the Yinsai epic engraved on them. As his gaze swept over the tablets, he discovered that the story began with King Yesile's tale, starting from when the trilobite men were expelled from the God-given land. When he came across some particularly captivating passages, he even chanted along. Open black lens bracket King Yesile sought God's forgiveness, and the merciful God bestowed the sun. Cup. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Even though God had driven the lineage of the firstborn out of the God-given land, he still watched over the descendants of Red Lucia. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. But this object called the sun also served as a warning to the people of the Yinsai kingdom, its power akin to the sun in the sky. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. It could nurture life, but it could also bring disaster. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Alas. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. King Yesile did not understand God's benevolence and the meaning behind it. Close black lens bracket. As he flipped through the bone tablets, Star and his own name gradually appeared in the story. Polo's movements became gentler, and his gaze slowed, carefully reading every sentence, every word that Tito had written. Finally, he finished reading the last bone tablet. Polo looked up and said with a smile, "It's beautifully written, and very fair. No embellishment, no praise, but also no slander. Very true to life. This is the story of Star and me." Upon hearing such praise from the messenger of God, Tito's heart surged with emotion. I dare not accept such commendation from the messenger of God. Polo continued, do you want to write a story about King Redlichia? The epic of Yinsai's origin and the birth of the Trilobite men. The myth of the great god Yinsai and Redlichia, the beginning of everything, and the covenant between God and man. Tito stood up abruptly, his pupils not only dilated but trembling. He wanted to, he dreamed of it. But he didn't believe he was capable of doing it. He was just a scholar from the Star Luo kingdom, not one of the legendary heroes or the noble firstborn princes. After his initial excitement, doubt appeared in Tito's eyes. How could I possibly do that? Everything has long been buried in the dust. We don't even have any records of what truly happened back then. I've never even seen the God-given land, nor do I know what the God-given city looks like. He could come up with a million reasons to prove that he couldn't do it. Polo told Tito, then go and see the true God-given land. Go pay homage to the immortal ruins left by the King of Wisdom, and go to the temple built by Redlichia for God to have an audience with the divine. Tito was completely stunned, and he couldn't help but tremble as he stood. He took a few steps forward, unconsciously reaching out his hand towards the messenger of God Polo. But then, as if he felt he was violating some taboo, he quickly withdrew his hand. He kept waving his hands, his gaze avoiding Polo. This is impossible. I am just a lowly mortal. But in his heart, a flame was burning fiercely, ignited by Polo's words. Polo said with certainty, you can do it. Don't you believe in fate? You didn't come here by chance. You said it was fate that arranged for you to meet Star and me. Nothing is coincidence, everything has been predestined. Because everything, before Polo could finish, Tito said the rest of the sentence himself, is guided by God. Tito's heart had a million reasons to believe he couldn't do it, but Polo gave him one reason. A reason he couldn't refuse, no matter what. A reason for which he would give everything, stop at nothing. Polo smiled, very good. Tito, go and seek the legendary God-given land. I will leave something behind to guide you towards the realm of God. Go to the Pyramid Temple and have an audience with the eternal Yinsai. Then, offer my final gift to God. 60. Dreamy starlight continuously emanated from Polo's body, and a door opened by countless glowing lights engulfed Polo and the entire Sun Cup flower garden. Polo, embracing Star, slowly floated up, gently rotating in midair, stirring up layers of ripples and waves. The scene was as if a starry galaxy revolved around them. In the end, Polo and Star gradually dissipated in the halo of light, transforming into stardust. The poet Tito, holding his bone tablet of the Yinsai epic, chased after them, staring in a daze at the sky above. He murmured, Queen Star, Lord Polo. On the ground, all that remained was emptiness. The dazzling garden had vanished along with the Queen and the messenger of God. In the air, Polo's final sigh lingered faintly. What a pity, I couldn't see God one last time. I'm sorry, God, in the end, Polo still can't accompany you on your journey. Just as Polo and Star had said, he would take Star and fall into an eternal dream. There, they would be together forever. Tito stared blankly at the sky, watching the light gradually dissipate. But at the same time, a golden beam descended from the heavens, falling before him. He cast his gaze to the ground, kneeling down and slowly picking up the object. In disbelief, he whispered, could this be the divine cup? Polo's body and all his powers had condensed together, forming a golden divine cup shimmering with starlight. It bore dreamlike patterns, the symbols of the sun and stars. The divine cup contained the concept of dreams and the core coordinates of all dream powers. It was the foundation of dreams and the supreme power of dream abilities. Tito held the cup and looked inside. Starlight rippled within. He saw the shadows of Queen Star and the messenger of God Polo. They had transformed into stars in the sun, intertwined together, traversing an endless sea of sun cup flowers. Then he saw one magnificent and spectacular dream after another, emerging and vanishing within the golden divine cup. Finally, the light receded. Rust and weathering gradually crept onto the golden divine cup, turning it into an aged and battered object. If not for the miraculous power it had just displayed, no one would have been able to tell what it truly was. However, Tito vaguely understood what he held in his hands. It was akin to the mother conch of all things belonging to Shelley, the mother of life, and the crown of wisdom of Redlichia, the king of wisdom. This was a supreme and unparalleled divine artifact. The poet's hands, holding the divine cup, suddenly trembled violently. He even felt that touching this object with his hands was a desecration of it. He raised the divine cup high above his head. Lord Polo, is this the gift you offer to God? How am I worthy of presenting this supreme divine artifact on your behalf? Can I truly accomplish what you said? The flower called the Sun Cup by the Trilobite men was referred to as the Divine Cup, but in reality it was unworthy of that name. However, as the sovereign of all Sun Cups and the supreme object of dream powers, condensed from Polo himself, this was the true Divine Cup. Tito carefully put away the Divine Cup. At this moment, countless emotions surged within his heart. He felt as if he couldn't even speak, only able to record it in writing. The poet Tito picked up a jade-like stone carving knife and engraved the final chapter of the Yinsai epic on the bone tablet. Open black lens bracket. The shining stars extinguished with the passing of the queen, and the dream spirit born from dreams also met its end with the shattering of the beautiful dream. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. The rulers of generations past were buried under the dust of time, yet the legacy of Yinsai continued. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. But the epic was no more, and the myth was lost in the passage of time. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Only faith remained eternal. Close black lens bracket. The story of the messenger of God and the Star Queen had come to an end. Sky Temple, God's servant city. The poet Tito returned with his great poem, and the queen opened the path to the temple for him. In the tall and majestic palace, he prostrated himself on the ground before the gazes of the numerous priests of the Star Luo kingdom, holding up the Yinsai epic, meticulously engraved on stone tablets. Presented to the noble queen, Your Majesty. With fervor, he declared, may the legacy of Yinsai never fade, and may the faith in God Yinsai endure forever. The young current queen sat on the throne. After reading the poem on the stone tablets, she showed a shocked expression. Even as the queen of the Star Luo kingdom in the third generation of the Xilong family, she only vaguely knew the story of the once existent Yinsai through oral traditions. This was the first time she had seen such a complete Yinsai epic, so authentic and detailed. Within it was a fearsome fatalism, the will of God that surpassed all. There was the desire for power, the greed of original sin, as well as devotion and faith. There were clashes between the lofty king of wisdom and the cursed leader of the craftsmen, with the figures of kings, ministers, priests, and messengers of God intertwining in cycles. One character after another, they converged into an epic chapter. It is truly a magnificent poem. They say you traveled across the 4 kingdoms to complete this work. Tito humbly replied, only by witnessing the footsteps of the kings can one depict true history. The queen's curiosity was piqued. I heard that you also met Queen Star and Lord Polo, the messenger of God. Is this true? Tito did not conceal it. I indeed met Queen Star and the messenger of God. The queen immediately stood up. How are they? Tito prostrated himself on the ground and said, Your Majesty, the stars have vanished, but the dream lives on. In the palace, silence fell instantly. Having completed the Yinsai epic, Tito became a sensation in the God-servant city, with countless people reciting his poem. The nobles of the Star Luo kingdom took pride in inviting him to attend banquets, and priests sought him out to request his works. His name spread from the Star Luo kingdom to other kingdoms, and even nobles and rulers from other kingdoms sent invitations, hoping he would visit their realms. He had become what he had once hoped for, surpassing his father and grandfather to become a renowned poet. However, none of this could make him feel satisfied. Tito stood on the steps of the Sky Temple, gazing at the sea of clouds and the entire world. He asked himself, Tito, you have already achieved so much success. Why then do you still feel this emptiness inside? He had achieved enough success, enjoying a glory he had never experienced before. But he could only call it success, not greatness. He wanted to be a great poet. The words of the messenger of God Polo echoed once more in Tito's ears. Tito, go and seek the legendary God-given land. I will leave something behind to guide you towards the realm of God. Go to the Pyramid Temple and have an audience with the eternal Yinsai. The wind rose, rekindling the flame in Tito's heart. The flame surged higher and higher, unstoppable. Tito suddenly turned his head, looking in the direction of the God-descended city. His eyes pierced through the high mountains, lakes, deserts, and the boundless vast ocean. He saw that divine realm filled with sun-cup flowers. I want to write an even greater epic. No, a myth. Its name will be. Tito's eyes seemed to blaze with fire and light. Hymn of the King of Wisdom.